Consumed by desire, the temptation that won't quit. This is harder than I thought. Saying it out loud, even just to myself, feels like peeling back layers of something I've kept buried. Something hot and pulsing, living just beneath my skin. I'm Maya, I'm 26, and I live in a small, slightly dusty apartment in the heart of the city, overlooking a street that never truly sleeps. People always seem to be moving down there, living their loud, bright lives, while up here in the quiet, I'm wrestling with something much more silent and consuming. It started subtly, as these things often do. A shift in the air, a new gravity pulling me in a direction I hadn't known existed. It was him. Just him. I won't name him, not even in this private confession to the walls. He's a presence that fills a room without trying, a quiet intensity that snagged my attention the first time I saw him and hasn't let go since. Initially, it was just curiosity. He was different from the usual faces. Held himself with a certain stillness that was both calming and strangely, deeply intriguing. Then curiosity morphed into something else, something heavier, warmer. It happened in increments I couldn't track, like the slow rise of the tide. A shared glance across a crowded space that held on a fraction of a second too long. The way his voice resonated, low and steady, sending a shiver down my spine that had nothing to do with cold. The sheer magnetic pull whenever he was near. My body started betraying me first. Little things. A sudden flush I couldn't explain. My palms feeling strangely warm. A tightness in my chest when he smiled at me. A smile that didn't reach his eyes but somehow reached me, deep down. My breath catching, just slightly, whenever we passed in the hallway, the air between us suddenly thick and charged. It was like my physical self was recognizing something my conscious mind was desperately trying to ignore or rationalize away. I started noticing things I shouldn't have. The way the light caught the slight stubble on his jaw, the strong line of his neck, the effortless power in his shoulders when he moved. Details I'd process and store away, revisiting them in quiet moments, letting the images flicker behind my eyelids. And with those images came the heat, a slow creeping warmth that started low in my belly and spread outwards, making my skin feel too sensitive, my clothes feel too restrictive. This wasn't just attraction. Attraction is butterflies, maybe a nervous laugh. This was hunger, a deep, resonant ache that demanded to be acknowledged. It felt primal, almost overwhelming. A raw, undeniable desire that had nothing to do with romance or feelings, and everything to do with a desperate, physical pull. It scared me, frankly. This intense, focused craving for someone who was, by all accounts, unavailable, or at the very least, completely unaware of the storm brewing inside me. The nights became the hardest. Lying in bed, the city sounds a distant hum. My mind would replay every interaction, every glance, every near touch. My imagination, untethered in the darkness, would take over. I'd picture scenarios, lingering touches, whispered words, things that would never happen, couldn't happen, and the heat would build. It would start as a low simmer and build into a rolling boil, leaving me restless, tangled in my sheets, my body arching with a frustration that had no easy release. My skin felt incredibly alive, tingling, aching with a need that felt almost unbearable. It was less about him specifically in those moments, and more about the sheer, explosive feeling he uncorked within me. A powerful, overwhelming wave of pure, unadulterated lust. Then there were the close calls. Moments where the temptation felt so strong, so palpable, I felt I might actually lose control. Like the time we were working late. The office was quiet, the lights low. We were standing side by side, looking at a screen. His arm brushed mine, and it was like a jolt of electricity went through me. My heart hammered against my ribs, loud enough I was sure he must hear it. The air felt impossibly close, charged with unspoken energy. All I could think about was turning my head, just slightly, closing the small distance between us, finding his mouth with mine. The thought was instantaneous, overwhelming, physical. My body tensed, every muscle screaming for the contact. It was a raw, urgent need that bypassed my brain entirely. For a split second, I was entirely ruled by this physical pull. My breathing hitched, and I had to clamp down, hard, on the impulse, clinging to the edge of the desk to ground myself. He shifted away then, oblivious, and the moment passed, leaving me shaky and breathless, my body still humming with the near miss. Another time, it was a simple conversation. Nothing remarkable being said, just everyday talk. But the way he looked at me, not intensely, not even flirtatiously, but just present, engaged. And the way his lips moved when he spoke, the slight crinkle at the corners of his eyes. It was so simple, so innocent on the surface, but beneath it, the familiar heat began to coil tight inside me. It wasn't about what he was saying. It was the overwhelming, almost painful awareness of his physical presence, the dark depth of his eyes, the sheer temptation of reaching out, just tracing the line of his jaw. My hands actually trembled, and I had to hide them, clasping them tightly in my lap. I felt a dampness gather, a heavy internal pressure, and I shifted uncomfortably in my seat, trying to discreetly relieve the sudden, intense physical sensation that flared up, embarrassingly potent. It was humiliating and exhilarating all at once, this deep, undeniable physical reaction to just existing near him. This feeling, this lust. It's not polite, it's not gentle, it's demanding. And sometimes, frankly, dirty. It makes me think things I shouldn't think, imagine things I shouldn't imagine. It strips away the layers of civility and politeness and exposes a raw, hungry core I didn't know I possessed. It's the feeling of being entirely consumed by a physical wanting, where logic dissolves and all that's left is the urgent, pulsing need for contact, for closeness, for something undefined but intensely physical. And that's the confession. Not an action, because I haven't acted, but the confession of the feeling. The admission that this is raging inside me. That the temptation is a constant companion, a low thrum beneath the surface of my day. It's in the way I unconsciously track his movements, the way my mood lifts or dips depending on whether I see him, the involuntary leap of my pulse when he enters the room. It's the sheer overwhelming force of this desire that feels almost too big for my body to contain. It's an aching, a longing, a deep, physical pull that leaves me feeling undone, restless, and frankly, constantly on edge. It's the confession that I am perpetually tempted, always just a breath away, from giving in to this heat, this hunger, this raw, consuming lust, that he unknowingly awakens in me. And admitting it doesn't make it disappear, it just makes it real. And it feels hot, and heavy, and entirely, undeniably mine.